InDigital is on a mission to improve the 911 industry. Our goal is to create something better to go above and beyond the current standards. Our passion for creating the most advanced, well-designed solutions led to our position as an industry leader in next-gen core services. For the millions of calls processed over our emergency IP networks, to our Text for 911 solution, Texty, to our disaster recovery and backup solution, Mevo, it's easy to see we love what we do. For more information, check us out at www.indigital.net.
Rapid Deploy believes that every public safety agency, regardless of size, should have access to the data they need when it matters most. That's why since 2016, our mission has been to reduce emergency response times and improve public safety. We are the industry's only integrated emergency response platform. Our web-based cloud platform includes analytics, mapping, dispatch, and mobile apps, purpose-built for 911 in the 21st century. Visit www.rapiddeploy.com to learn how we enable effective, efficient, data-driven emergency response.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be episode 333 of Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy, and it is July 14th, 2020. And there's a lot of stuff that I've been working on, a lot of things that I've been teasing as well. And I think by the time this airs, you will already know everything that I've been talking about. Maybe. Yeah, I think so. It should have aired already by that time. But if not, well, you'll find out. So I am very excited to have this guest on. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to be talking about. We have been actually going back and forth on Twitter and email, and we actually met at, I believe it was the National APCO conference, this last one that went last year. And it was excellent. We were in Baltimore, I believe. There's been so many conferences. I'm trying to remember all of them. But either way, we're about to get started here. And I am very happy to have you all with us and your support, patrons, sponsors, everything. Thank you all so much for everything. I appreciate it more than you know. So my guest today is James, and he is a 911 communications officer with an agency in South Jersey. Here we are. What's going on, man?
Hi, good morning. How you doing, Ricardo?
I am doing all right. It's early. Are we in the same time zone?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
9 a.m. Yep.
Nice. So I was just curious because, I wanted to make sure. We've got this schedule thing that I have set up, and I saw the times, and I was pretty sure it was the same one. But then I thought, oh man, what if he's an hour or so behind or something like that? It's probably.
Well, I know somewhere in Indiana there is the difference where it splits to central, right?
Yes. Yeah. The upper northwest part of Indiana, it ends up going to central.
Yeah, because back in I want to say 94, I was out there. 92, 94, I was out there for a Police Explorer conference.
Mm-hmm.
And sometime during that trip, they're like, "Oh, we're a different hour now. They're an hour back or whatever." It's like, wow, okay, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the very tip of Indiana is goes into Central as well. I think I don't
I think
remember
it
for
was when
sure.
we were visiting Indianapolis Raceway.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we got a tour of that.
all of that is awesome. I've been all over the state, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to continue doing a lot of traveling as well. However, as things go right now, it's a little
This
hard to
COVID
travel.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty crazy. Um, so it's really good to have you on, man. Like I was saying in the intro, we've been talking a lot. We've been sharing stuff on Twitter. You are you and another gentleman out of West Virginia. You guys are straight up warriors, man. Going in on the reclassification, which is awesome. You guys have both been sharing a lot. Jim Brown is the one out of West Virginia, and
Yeah,
he
I'm a member of his Facebook page, and what an excellent job he has done. And actually, he's got something accomplished. He actually got his state to change over. One of my local representative in this state assembly is actually sponsoring a bill here in New Jersey. So I'm going to try. I've been trying to reach out to him, but I know all members of legislation, they're all busy, especially with everything going on right now. So hopefully I'll be able to work with him and get that through here in New Jersey. But yeah, I'm really all about this change of classification because there's a new generation coming, and it'd be really awesome if they had the that recognition and this and just the not anticipation, the expectation
Mhm.
of um, that higher standard, and that we are protective services, we are first responders, and we should have the appropriate training and the priority from politicians, police administrators, our own command staff within the 911 system, and then the employees. Every day we go to work, we need to be, when I go to work, I could make a difference in someone's life.
Right.
And you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
it's,
exactly.
yeah. So
There's a lot to it. The right now as it stands, the reclassification would be for the recognition. Eventually, from what I've been told, eventually, and you've probably been told this as well. There'll be added things to it. Retirement, the amount of funds and everything that will go into training, like you were saying. But right now, it's recognition. But
yeah,
that's the first step. That's the first step. Getting that recognition, one, and then continuing to build on, whether it be federally, state, to get those funds, to continue those trainings, to get those certifications that are needed in whichever state, and also to be able to have certain benefits for retirement, to be able to retire at the same
well,
time
I
as
think it's Colorado did a post-traumatic stress disorder. Now dispatchers are eligible. I mean, that's
right,
awesome. That's
and
huge.
that as
You
well,
know,
yeah, to be able to get those resources for mental health and wellness. There's a lot that comes into it, but this is the first step. And
exactly. And
those like you and Jim and a lot of others who are really pushing it, state by state, it's happening, and it's awesome to see, man. So
yeah.
you're killing it on Twitter.
I'm trying, and I mean, I got my local congressman to co-sponsor the bill at the national level. And for the dispatchers and your audience out there, it's not one email. It's email, phone calls, a letter, and maybe not every minute of every day, but spaced out over a couple of weeks. Drop an email,
Right.
send a letter, make the phone call.
Dialogue going. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, because it wasn't one letter and then, oh yeah, James, thank you, I appreciate that. That's great. Yeah, I'm all about this. I literally wrote like, 2 or 3 emails. Like once a month, I shoot him an email or send him a letter, and then I got that letter back, and I was like, oh wow, So it takes time.
Yeah, no, definitely. That is awesome, man. Now, I want to go back in time a little bit because I want to learn more about you. I had you in one of my Imagine listening sessions, and you shared a story there, and you were there for all of the stories that were shared, and it was awesome to have you there, not only to finally meet you at the booth that I was at, but then later on at the session to hear you share that story, and then a lot of others sharing stories as well. Those, it's hard to explain to people who are listening or even watching what it's like to be in that room with everyone sharing these stories, these powerful stories, but it means something, and we're there
It's
supporting
huge,
each
dude.
other. So how did you get into public safety? Like, do you come from a public safety family, or did you find like
My like
a lot of
second cousin removed was a police captain, or he
Mhm.
retired as a captain in the community in the detective bureau, the same agency that I work for. But my interest in law enforcement, I might be like the last group of chips and emergency squad 51,
Yeah.
where you heard the dispatchers. I mean, very seldom did they pop a little video of the dispatchers at work. I think Chips did it a couple times with the highway patrol, California Highway Patrol dispatchers, maybe a glimpse of them.
Mhm.
Squad 51 emergency, they would show the fire dispatcher. You always heard the dispatch at the beginning of each call, but every once in a while they'd actually show them at work in the
Right.
comm center, and that was awesome. And my older brother Rob, he's 3 years older than I. What he did, I did. Where he went, I went. And some of his friends, we grew up playing soccer together. Some of his friends were explorers at the local police department, the Boy Scout program where you explore careers instead of going out and hiking in the woods. You can explore careers in the fire department, the police department, the hospital. I believe there's like law firms have explorers like that. You learn, about how the legal system works. So I joined the Explorer program when I was 14, as soon as I was eligible. So the first time I stepped into the police department that I'm working for was March 30th, 1989.
Man, you remember the exact date.
Yes, I don't know. It just clicked. I saw it on the count, and I remembered. Like that was, and that room is now our dispatch center.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, yeah, it was the briefing room at the time, and the dispatch center was in the front of the building. And because we've grown, we had to relocate. So the center is now located in the old briefing room. They knocked the wall down, made it a little bigger. So yeah, I've been walking in that room since I was 14 years old.
Oh man. So take me through that a little bit. So you're stepping into that room as a 14-year-old, and what do you like? Do you remember any of your thoughts, like looking at it and hearing,
Just in
a
awe,
lot of stuff
being
coming in?
in. Sorry, I don't mean to talk over you. Just being in awe of the officers
Mhm.
and being excited to learn the job. And to tell you the truth, I was all about being a police officer. And I got to the point where I was old enough, and through the different training and stuff, they start letting you do ride-alongs. So I rode along with any officer that was willing to take me out. And most of them are retired, and one of them is a chief of police now.
Oh
So,
man.
and like I said, I think there's maybe one other guy. Yeah, and then there's a lieutenant that I used to ride with. In fact, that lieutenant is the one who told me, "Hey, maybe you should go do a sit-in in the comm center just to get an idea what that's about and learn and see what they do." And so a good friend of mine, Charlie, was a senior dispatcher then, and he was like my mentor through the
Mhm.
program, or through my career rather. I sat with him, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought, well, this might be like a stepping stone. So when I graduated high school, they were hiring part-time dispatchers. So I went from high school to part-time dispatcher. I did the 40-hour basic. And I think I was like the first class in New Jersey to be, EMD mandated. So there was guys that had already been working, and they were in the class with me, and I was new, so I had my EMD from the beginning. But I was like one of the first classes in the state of New Jersey, and that was 90. That would have been 95. August of 95 is my first EMD cert.
So then, thinking back to that time, just so that those who are watching and those who are listening, what is it that you're looking at? It's 1995 and you're in there. Are there multiple screens, huge radios? What is it that you're looking at?
So then we had the GE console, like the radio system with little plastic buttons for each channel. We had 2 monitors, the radio monitor, or I'm sorry, let me take that back. It's been so long. We had 2 monitors. One was for NCIC and the other one was our CAT. And we had the I missed it. I think it was a plant 901 system, the old DOS green screen with just the like address and the three backup centers, or for some, if you have to transfer for fire EMS or whatever, the F keys or whatever.
Man. So because of the fact that you had been doing this for so long and you'd been around it, was it overwhelming then in the beginning when you first got in there, or no? Because you had that experience already, just kind of being.
Yeah, a lot of the things that I learned through the Explorer program. The basic 911 course is basic, and then you and then you go into agency training, and so you learn the policies of the department, the policies of the police, fire, and EMS agencies that you're working with. And then it's kind of like, answer the phone.
How big is the agency in the area that you cover? How many calls are like coming in?
I'm the frontline dispatcher. I don't play with the numbers, but we are 64 square miles, and we have 5 fire companies, 1 police department, 1 ambulance squad for the town I work for. And because of consolidation and stuff, we have a couple other neighboring agencies, each have their own fire and EMS fire and EMS departments, and then the police departments themselves. So we have about 5 operators on a shift, and we're call taker radio operators, so we're doing both sides. And we have 1 agency that we're just doing EMS, and so they kind of like transfer.
Do you switch between those, or does each console do everything? Like, are you doing?
Our consoles are set up. We can do whatever, but we usually have people delegated to, like, okay, today your area of responsibility is this. But we kind of flow, and you've talked before with other guests about getting into the groove, and it's we deal with what we have to deal with, and
So you got 5 people on at a time, and I'm guessing that's the minimum, right?
Yeah, we don't. I mean, after like midnight, we might go down 1 person, but that again, because we're the main agency, we're the busiest. Not that I've learned anything can happen anywhere at any time,
right?
And I love how managers always think like, oh, Sunday's no big deal. Sundays we get fewer phone calls, but look at the phone calls you get on Sundays. I mean, domestic bloody, instead of Sunday, or instead of the U2 song, Sunday Bloody Sunday, I say Sunday Domestic Sunday.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
yeah, exactly. No, I know exactly what you mean, because working where I work, and also when I was in dispatch as well, we would have some of the industry partners do maintenance on Sundays, and I'm like, why are you doing them on Sundays? There's so much shit that does happen on Sundays, just like you're saying. Or you've got holiday time, or even Super Bowl, people getting pissed off at each other fighting over Super Bowl, right? So
I really think it depends. It depends on who's in the Super Bowl. So if your team is in the Super Bowl, during the game, things are quiet. if they win, it could be pandemonium in one direction of like people being happy and doing crazy stuff because they're happy. If they lose, well, things could get ugly because
Right.
they're pissed off.
Yeah.
And I've worked my share of Super Bowls where I had one where we literally did nothing. We were like, okay, so we watched Band of Brothers, all 12 or all 10 episodes, whatever, because we do 12 hours.
Yeah.
So we like watched like one after another. I mean, that's how like absolutely quiet it was,
Wow. Oh, you said the word.
Yeah, zing zing. So
Yes.
but then there's one where literally the first kickoff we had a kitchen fire, and then a car accident with Jaws of Life. Then there was halftime, so we watched the halftime show. Kickoff second half, car into a telephone. We had to life flight them to trauma, and then the game was over. So two different scenarios, two different Super Bowls, two different outcomes.
That is crazy, man. But that's like we're saying it in 911. That's how it happens. Sometimes there's not a lot going on, and then other times it's just balls to the wall. And what the hell is it? A full moon or what is going on?
Yeah, and where I'm at in South Jersey, the Garden State Parkway. It's a 4-lane. I think now it's almost 6 in some areas. Where your holiday travelers, people and down at the shore. Go down to the shore and they return Sundays. So we can have crashes on the Parkway, and the Atlantic City Expressway goes from the Atlantic City to Philadelphia. And both of those highways intersect through our area. And we got about 5 miles on each highway. Our fire department, EMS go up in their primary responsible areas. Now our patrol goes up there if troopers are like at the opposite end of their coverage area, and it's bad enough where we need to like kind of like stabilize it till they get there. It doesn't happen often, but as a dispatcher, you start getting that sense, and you reach out to the dispatchers that are responsible for the state, and they're like, "Yo, if you can, yep, we're on it." You know what I mean? Like that whole or interagency operations working together like that,
right?
Mutual aid.
See, and that's awesome too. So before I get to that part, like my agency, we would have 3 people on a minimum, and then over the weekend it'd be 4. But I think that it's always cool to have situations like that as you're talking, when there's big things happening and everyone collectively is working together, because we're all working for that common goal. We want to help out and the situation and everything.
Stabilize and minimize damage.
Exactly. And when you're just working like a well-oiled machine, not just internally, but with other agencies, man, that is a thing. That is definitely a good thing.
Big time.
So do you remember any of your first calls? Like, do you remember even as a kid, do you, being there in the floor program? Do you remember any early
on ride along, if it was anything hot, we'd have to like stay in the car, or worse, we'd have to, be like dropped off at a local store. That never happened, but it's one of those like protocol things. Like, here, you stay here, another officer, or wait till I get back or whatever. Well, again, that never really happened to me. I was, as far as ride-alongs, didn't see too much. I had one woman hit a pole, and when the officer and I walked up to her, she was kind of had passed out, whatever. But then we, hey, you okay? And then, oh, hey, hello. So it wasn't that bad. But other police explorers actually saw some different things, But I guess I was the lucky one. I didn't get to see too much like that.
Well, and then do you remember your first call when you got into dispatch, or even some earlier ones that had come in?
No, I mean, well, like so I started in November of 95. That was a part-timer. In 96, I was starting to work like full-time hours as a part-time dispatcher. And then in 97 is when I went full-time dispatch. Like I said, I was doing like full-time hours as a part-time employee. Ooh, that might be bad. But you're talking 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah. And I was when I was back in Allegan, I was the last person to be a part timer, but kind of doing the same thing, kind of working some of those full time hours. Like I think I was maybe 1 hour off of that full time, but it was a lot of training I was doing, and then
I mean, I may be just recalling it. It may not have actually like crossed any lines or anything, but it just felt like it, maybe.
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure because to me it felt like it as well. So I'm guessing it would have been the same.
Allegedly.
Yeah. So then you're working and everything. So that's 97, and I'm trying to think now, and actually from you, how has the technology changed from 97 to now? What you were using?
All right, well, like you got me in like that old timer now on the Facebook page. Like the dot matrix.
Yeah, well, and I still had that, and it was 2007,
Wow.
2006.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that agency still had that. So
and we had the box, where you put it in there to kind of quiet it down.
yeah, yeah, we had a plexiglass box as well. Man, that's a
Yeah.
thing.
Now we got a laser printer. You got to like, did anything print? You got to like remember to check, because it's so quiet.
Right. Yeah. Oh man, no, I know exactly what you're saying, because we would have issues where it would be the weekend, and it would be summertime or a holiday or whichever, and they're doing a drunk driving grant or a click it or ticket type thing, and they're just running people and running people and running people. And I always dreaded when they would come over the radio and say, "I've got 6 to run," and you're like, "Dude, no." And then if it's a common name, the way our system worked, that printer and just the way it was set up, you had to go through the entire first person and have the printout before you could run another one. I don't know why it was like that. We finally
Wow.
updated, but it took ever. And I remember the officers would get pissed off at us, and I'm like, dude, there's nothing I can do. You just ran a John Smith or something, Mark.
It's gonna be a while.
Yes, it's going to be a while, because there's going to be so many names that come back, and then you're just waiting and waiting, and then you have to quickly go through all of them. And then if it is the person that they have, then you've got like this stack of papers that you give them afterwards, after the arrest.
Dude, we have a section of town where there was ladies of the evening.
Mhm.
And one got ran, and it was that old system with the paper it had to print out. It went like out our dispatch center, over the railing, down onto the first floor, and out like the back door.
Oh man.
she had been at it for a while.
Oh man, so it was all over. It was what I think right there is like Chutes and Ladders. Chutes and Ladders, how it looked all in curves going all over the place. That's how long the rap sheet was.
That's right. Yes, exactly. That's how long she'd been at her business.
Oh
and
man,
doing whatever else she was doing.
that
I don't
is
recall
crazy.
the history. That was a long time ago.
So
Not that I could share anyway.
right, yeah. So what are some of the calls that you took that kind of stick with you? We all have some, and it doesn't have to be something horrific. It can be a save or something like that. A lot of people have saves that will stick with them as well. I have a few of those that luckily I'm able to bring with me years later. But sometimes people don't. But that's just the industry. That's 911.
Well, I mean, I think in a whole, we really don't get recognized. But then when I look back at my career, I actually have to be pretty grateful and thankful to my agency, because they have recognized me a couple times. Way back when, I guess it was 98, 99.
Mm-hmm.
I had a female who said her accelerator was stuck wide open. And she started at one end of town on like the most windy road in our town, and ended up going like zigzagging through. So my partner and I, because back then it was only the two of us, and we only had the two towns, us and a small one smaller town. And so we were coordinating with the officers, trying to like block other traffic from getting involved. And then I was trying to tell her about, put it neutral, turn the car off, and she's saying all those things weren't working. So one of our sergeants actually got his car in front of hers and used his car to stop hers in the next town over, where the other agency that we worked for as well. So one of the officers in that agency put us in for an award for the local American Legion.
Mm-hmm.
So I got an Beyond, Beyond the Call of Duty award or something. I was whatever that organization did to recognize my partner and I for the work that we did with the officer. My town gave us a certificate of appreciation from the committee for that job. Yeah, and then the department itself, the chief at the time, who was it? Lisicki gave me a letter of appreciation for a 911 call I took of an armed robbery. So I answered 911, what is your emergency? Because this is back before cell phones. And like nobody said anything. So I was thinking, like, do I announce again or do I listen? So I just listened, and I could barely hear, give me all your money or I'll blow your head off.
Jeez.
Because the cashier called and then put the headset down or handset down. And so I was hearing it from the countertop. And so I did hey, everybody, this is happening at this location. Respond. And by doing that, one of my officers who recently retired happened to be driving through that very intersection. So instead of completing the turn he was making, he turns into the gas station parking lot. And as he's pulling in, the bad guy's coming out with the gun like down by his side. So the officer tackles him and takes him into custody he didn't even leave the parking lot. So that's kind of how like my citation reads for that one. Yeah, and then most recently I got an award for life-saving award.
Mm-hmm.
I had a woman call about her son choking the back seat of her car, but she was maybe in panic and like just overwhelmed. I really thought she was about to complain about another driver because it was like, I'm here, and she just named like the main road. Right. And it's like a main road like 5 miles long. I'm like, can you give me a little help? Like, let's narrow that down a little bit. And then she's like, tells me the intersection that she's approaching. And I was like, okay, so like, what's the emergency? Oh, I think he's dead. I'm like, what? Who? My son in the back seat. I was like, okay, pull over like now. What's your car? What's the color of your car? What kind of car you got? Pull over. My partners, they sent patrol and EMS, and I started immediately teaching her how to do CPR. And between me and the officers on scene, the child was brought back.
Wow, dude! Congratulations! Yeah. Like those are rare moments in 911 where people can get, a save like that. Now, I don't know if the stats are different now. Like I haven't actually looked it up, but when I was first starting in 2001. I remember in my beginner's training, my 40-hour basic, one of the guys that was there, one of our trainers, said that when doing CPR, there's a 5% chance of bringing that person back. And, that was,
this was an infant choking on something like a toy or something in the back seat of the car. It was so like a 1-year-old, I think, or, about that age. So, like I said, between her, first off, she was trying to drive to the hospital, which probably would not have ended well. So the fact that I was able to get her to trust me to stop and, and then listen to get the child out of the car seat and start doing the back blows and stuff. And like I said, my partner noticed that there was officers responding to a lesser emergency in the area. He alerted the patrol officers to, hey, stop by this car because this is what's happening. And like I said, between me and the officers, it's teamwork, right? Our side of the radio, on their side of the radio, I mean, and that's why I think that the 911 SAVES Act thing needs to get passed because we're not clerks.
Right. Yeah. You're not just answering the phone and sending them out. I mean, you are literally thinking outside of the box for a lot of different things. I mean, let's go back to, the armed robbery. You heard what you heard, and then instead of saying something again, which if you think about it, the crazy thing is, and I'm sure you've thought about this as well, because I'm kind of thinking about it in my own head. But if you would have said hello again, if you would have tried to say it louder, maybe that person would have heard you over the phone, and it would have been worse. Instead,
Or I would have missed what was actually happening.
yes, exactly. So instead, you're listening to everything that's going on in the background, and that's what I tell people as well about this job, is that you have to use like every sense, and your hearing especially, because
Hearing's number
you're
one.
also piecing everything together in your head of what's going on, and then you hear what the person says. You're typing it in. You're getting people headed out there. They know what they're going to, at least with just what that person said. They can imagine what they're going out to. They're going out to someone who is trying to rob the place and has a weapon, and also threatened. So they know that they're going out to some shit, and they end up getting out there and they get the guy. But it all started with you, and you're listening and putting everything in there. And exactly, that's why, as well, that this also needs to be passed, because there's so much more than just answering the phone. You're going through a lot of stress, and there's burnout, and that ends up coming out with that. After so many years, I hit that on my 6-year mark, is when I hit my burnout, and I had to find a different way to recover from it. And that's a topic as well that that we want to talk about here today too, is burnout prevention and recovery.
Yeah.
So how does that affect you?
Well, it's I know I watched the other Podfest that you were a part of.
Yes.
And the other gentleman from the other podcast was talking about the big T's versus the little T's. And it's true. I mean, like, and in dispatch, you kind of get hammered by a little bit of both. It's the little T's. It's not the one domestic. It's the fact that I have handled I don't know how many domestics over my career, and each one of them like chips away at the rock, and it's not the one DOA call. It's the however many I've taken over the course of my career. And it's our own mistakes of focusing on the calls that aren't successful instead of remembering the successful ones that we just spoke of.
Right.
Like we have to remind ourselves, like, and an amazing thing is the episode 283, that is the Imagine Listening. I have so many stories, and I wanted to share something that was successful in that room that day. I don't know why, it could be, because I could tell you like the worst call that I ever took, but I chose that positive outcome to share with the room. And I don't know if you remember, because I know you're busy working, the room and doing your thing that that you were doing. But the very next person got up and said pretty much the same exact scenario, but her situation, it had already transpired. Like, so to go back, I got a 911 hang up, and it is amazing. Like 2 seconds, maybe even shorter than that. Just my announcement and the click of the phone, I just got that feeling like when I call this house back, it's going to be bad.
Right.
Just from the now where's your emergency click. Like, I don't know, could I sense how hard you close, hit the end button or something? I don't know.
It's possible.
But when I called back, it was, this is 911. You called. You have an emergency. Yes, my husband's standing in the kitchen with a gun in his mouth. So, like, okay,
right.
How do I handle this? Well, her safety is paramount. Second is, how do I get him to not do it? So I'm like, ma'am, hand the phone over to your husband. Tell him his friend's on the phone and wants to talk to him. And then as soon as you do that, run out the front door, go to the neighbor's house. And so she's like, hey, this guy wants to talk to you. And then I could hear the screen door closing behind her. So now I'm on the phone with the gentleman. And it's like, what's going on? Like, what brought you to this point? What brought us here today? And unfortunately, the gentleman lost his son in Afghanistan, He was a soldier or Marine fighting for his country, and he didn't come back.
Mhm.
And so this gentleman was, obviously, and I could get it, the loss of a son. He was distraught over that. So I was like, look, I get that you're upset, but I think you need to remember, like, he did what he was supposed to do. He went out and what he wanted to do, serve his country, and to best honor your son is by living and try to, live for him and live, so, things along those lines is what I was saying to him.
Right.
And then, again, we're listening to the caller, we're listening to the background noise, but then we're also listening to the radio at the same time. So now I'm hearing the units like, we're approaching the house, we're getting close. So then you start going into like, okay, look, I need you to put that gun down because I don't want you to hurt yourself. And guns make officers nervous, so to protect yourself, protect my officers, you need to put that gun down. And I literally could hear the metal revolver being placed down on the table.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, like, look, now you're going to walk out the front door with your arms up. You did nothing wrong. You are not in trouble. We are here to help you. But you need to do that so that the officers know that you're not a harm to them or yourself. And he's just doing it, So then the officers, we got him. Ambulance is here. We're out with his wife. She's okay. And it's just like, wow, and so that's why I want to share that as a positive thing in that room, because there was a lot of negative situations that we've all dealt with that were being shared, and it was great for them to get that out, and being familiar with your program, I just thought of all my stories, I felt like this was the one I wanted to share with the room. And then the very next person grabs that mic, and I took a 911 call, and the wife came home and found her husband in the kitchen. Like, and I was just like, oh my God, so like, yeah, we do our part, but then you never know. Like, sometimes it's beyond us. We answered that 911 call, and we have no idea what's on the other side of that phone call. And our job is to try to prevent things and to try to minimize things and serve the public and protect the officers and firefighters and EMTs. But then there's that unknown that just happens,
Right.
That's like out of our control.
I was happy, definitely happy that you had shared that story, because yes, there are a lot of bad in calls that happen in 911, and they're the ones that we stick with us. But I also encourage people, if there's a save, share a save. And it was excellent with so many stories that were coming in, and then you just shared that one as well. It's uplifting, it's still just as powerful, because it's your story, and then others, it's their story. I remember when you had shared this, and even as you're sharing it again now, thinking back, you made me flash back to one of my own as well. In comparison, there was a gentleman that I talked to on the phone he was done. He was ready to go. He had his gun to his head as well, and I'm trying to remember what year it was now. It's like 2008 or 2009. There was a lot of shit going on in the US where, jobs, like, people were just getting canned from all types of jobs, mostly manufacturing, like factories and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this gentleman had just been laid off, and he didn't know what he was going to do. And, he was not having, great times with his wife, and then he had his family and stuff. But what he wanted to do, because we had people heading out there. One of my good buddies, he was a canine deputy. He was heading out there first. He was going to arrive first, and the guy kept telling me, "This is going to be suicide by cop." And I'm like, "Man, you don't want to do that." And I'm talking to him and talking to him and talking to him. And I think one of the key things is just really in those moments, I also, as fast as you can, of course, just kind of like you did, learning about that person, learning what's going on, and then talking to them and relating to them, because, man, it's all about being human, right? And
Yeah,
he ended up putting his gun down when the officer got there. And
that's awesome.
getting goosebumps thinking about it now. But
Dude, it is crazy what you can hear and what you can do. And your voice, your tone of voice is so powerful. And if you're not careful, you know, you could send the wrong message just by the tone of your voice,
right.
you know, so yeah, I mean, that's huge, dude. I mean, good for you, man. That's awesome.
You as well. I haven't thought about that call in so long. And I remember that when we were in there, that it flooded back. I thought, wow, I haven't remembered that call in forever, but it came back, and it's a good call. It's a good outcome one. And
Yeah.
even now, you know, talking about it too, like it feels like I took it yesterday.
Yes. You know, I mean, like yeah, I've taken all kinds, you know, well, I mean, luckily I haven't taken, like, you know, the where it ends poorly while I'm on the phone. I've been, you know, by the grace of God, I have not had to deal with that.
Right.
All mine are, I talked them to the point where I was able to hand them off to someone else, or it was, you know, people have discovered and it was already too late. But I've never actually been on the phone when the situation occurred. It happened to a partner of mine, and I go back to, he's no better or worse than as a dispatcher than I am. You know, it's he picked up the call, and that's the call he got. And he wasn't, you know, and a lot of times some dispatchers say, like, when they get that kind of call, doesn't matter what they said, you know, that person was already to the point where they just wanted to make sure that someone knew that this was going to happen.
Right.
And that's what happened to him. You know, the guy's like, hey, I'm here at this place, you know, and then he thought he heard it. And then he realized when the guy wasn't answering him anymore, like, that's what happened, you know? So he's an amazing dispatcher. You know, it's just what happens.
Right. Now, kind of building on what we're talking about right now, you know, we're talking about these types of calls, you know, for yours, was there like a debriefing or, you know, stress management or anything that has come out of this? Because this is also, you know, a big topic going on, and really has been going on for a while.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, I tell you, even if this bill doesn't happen, or if it takes like 5 more years or 10 more years, just imagine listening and your I Am 901 movement has really made a difference. And a lot of people throughout our industry and in the public service, you know, public safety industry as a whole, I think the complete attitude change. Because, you know, like my worst call happened about 3 years into the job. And it was that attitude of, he wasn't there. Why does he need to be debriefed? And that was, like, I would say, like the first domino of the fall of my, like, burnout. It took a long time because it was the big T that tipped over and then knocked all the little T's, and then, you know, throwing a couple other big T's.
Right.
You know, but they did a debriefing for the agency that it was involved in. And then as an afterthought, they sent the counselor over just to speak to me. And I have to give props to my supervisor at the time. He was retired, you know, enjoying life in Florida, hopefully being safe and staying clear of everything. But she called over and was like, yo, dude, what about my guy? And yeah, pretty much like, well, he wasn't there. Well, he took the call. He heard what he heard.
Right.
It was a young lady swimming, and she passed away in the pool from a heart issue. Had nothing to do with the pool. But hearing the parents' reaction and trying to help, and luckily patrol, EMS, fire, they were like right across the street, you know, and they were doing stuff, and they were like, you know, a cardiac surgeon, cardiologist would have to have been by the pool to save her, you know. But things happen, things are said, and then the next thing you know, you're like, oh my God, like, you know, how could we have saved her or whatever? And like, you know, and like that, the briefing just by me and the critical incident stress management counselor. I don't think it had the full effect of being in the room with everybody else and getting the whole picture and being able to hear everyone's side of the story. And, you know, fast forward to just like a year or two ago, we had a traumatic incident that occurred in town, and there was a critical incident stress management where everybody working that day, dispatch, fire, EMS, we were all brought in. We had a couple counselors there, and we went from beginning to end. This is what happened. This is the scenario that the officers and the firefighters and the EMTs found themselves in. You know, you guys did what you were able to do, and it just, this is the result.
Right.
And so being in that room with the whole group, and just a complete different scenario and different situation. So, and I really think that, you know, and there's other people talking about it too, like in law enforcement and stuff. So like the whole industry, all three agencies, all three branches have really just changed the attitude. You know, it's suck it up, buttercup is no, we need to talk. We need to get this out, because you know, you keep it in, it's bad, you know? I mean, yeah, like, but my worst scenario was, so, and this is for the younger kids out there just starting a career. Get the Adam Tim Healthy Dispatcher book. Get the Jim Marshall 911 Resilient Professional. Because I wish someone had given me that book, those one or either or both of those books when I first started out. You know, because if I had, you know, if I had known the information that I know now, you know, maybe I could have like self-cared away a lot of the things that I was dealing with. You know what I mean? You know, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I believe my main man, Ben Franklin, said that. You know, so, yeah, I mean that, because I was already with, you know, like almost, you know, post-traumatic stress from the job and stuff. And then I had a personal issue. I lost my brother, the same brother I had discussed with you earlier. He passed away unexpectedly. So you know, you got to deal with your job, but then you're also dealing with your own grief. And, you know, a lot of other family members were able to like deal with their grief, but then I had to go to work and deal with more grief because I'm listening to other people, you know, and hearing families losing someone never used to affect me. And I used to, like, you know, because we're proud of what we do. And like I think you talked about it with your previous guest. You know, we want to, you know, like the quarterback wants the ball, you know, like we want to be doing like all that we do, you know, and because we're professionals, you know, and that's what we want to do. We want to do our job. You know, but you know, and so it was when I was younger, I would wish for stuff, you know, but then when I got the phone call, you know, that I lost my brother, all of a sudden I'm like guilty. I'm feeling guilty. Like, oh my God, I used to wish for this crap on people. So like I started this with, you know, talking to the younger people, like, you know your job. You've been trained. You're starting to do it. You will handle the situation. When you come to work, just be ready and know that and be confident that you're ready to handle the day's work, and just let the day happen. It's going to happen. Just let the day happen. Don't wish for it, you know, like anything, because when it does, and then if you have a similar situation on your own, you know, personal side, you know, that might come back to haunt you. I mean, everyone's different, but I'm speaking from my experience. And yeah, like 20 years, I think about, you know, 15, 16 years, 17 years on the job when this incident occurred. It was the first time anyone in my family passed away, like not of like old age, you know, so to have that, you know, happen. And you know, there's an episode of MASH where Bombardier, I guess he had to, like, you know, parachute down and he broke his arm. So he was all being like, yeah, so we do our bombing runs and then we go back and we're sitting by the pool in Japan drinking our Long Island iced teas. And Hawkeye like walks him through the recovery room and shows him like, well, that little girl is here because somebody dropped a bomb from a plane flying overhead. And he was like, you jerk, you know, like you get that like punch in the face reality of, you know, what happens on the other side. And you know, so just spare yourself that, you know.
Right. No.
I know, sorry to go on such a long,
No,
know.
that's fine. You know, this is all your thoughts and your feelings. You're speaking from your own experience. Now, along with all of that, though, what are some? I mean, you had mentioned already, you know, a couple of those books, but what are other ways, you know, to kind of prevent and fight against burnout? Because I mean, it's with some people, it's going to happen. It happened to me, and I had to find a way to bring it back, to come back, to find my passion again. Like I loved what I was doing either way, but the environment with everything that was going on with the county and a bunch of other stuff, complete overtime, no raises or anything. It was a toxic environment. But for myself, it was in telling stories and doing all types of projects for 911 related stuff in public safety that I was able to get out of that burnout, to get out of that rut and come back and keep going, you know, up for it. But from your experience and stuff, how were you able to bring it back? Because you're still there, you're still working, you're still loving it. And that's a hard incident, you know, to deal with losing, you know, your brother and stuff. And as you know, like you said, you've got that issue that you're dealing with family wise, but then you also have to deal with what's going on with everyone else who's calling for your help, and then those that are out there in the field. So, how did you bring it back?
Well, is you know, I don't know if someone was told the gentleman to do it or if he just did it on his own initiative, but we have internet access when we're slow, and we did an online. You might have post traumatic stress disorder self test or whatever,
Uh-huh.
and he did it first, and he was, you know, like, you know, midway point. He had, you know, not as many years on as I did, and then I was like 30 for 30, ding ding. And then a short time later, hey, you know, we have an an employee assistant program. Would you like to be a part of that? And I was like, yeah, sure. You know, so, and I have to thank my agency for doing that for me, actually. You know, kudos to them. You know, and I went, and that counseling kind of helped, because again, I started talking about my brother, and they're like, yeah, that kind of sucks, but what else? So
Right, there's something deeper. Like what else?
yeah,
What else?
they can read you, and so like I was like an onion. And so like, you know, Rob was the first layer, and
Mhm.
then like all those other calls that I shared and ones I haven't shared, you know, were in the middle. So they like pulled all the layers out, separated them all out, and got them all out. And you got to cry. Yeah, cry. Believe it or not, crying is huge.
Mhm.
Because people said I looked like I was walking around with a piano on my back. And then when I started to finally let go and just let myself cry, it's like the movie Green Mile.
Mhm.
After he performed you know, a good deed or whatever, and then you have to go and cough out the bugs or whatever. Like
Right, right.
crying is you coughing those bugs out. You
I
know?
I
Yeah.
agree, man. It's letting out those like you said, I can see it in my head. You know, it's really it's letting out all of those feelings. It's letting out just everything. It is good. I mean, like I've said many times, I was one of those dispatchers as well who would hold in my stories, and I learned the hard way that that was not the right thing to do. So
Yeah. I
by
mean, I don't recommend it on the 911 center floor, but
oh, right,
you
yeah,
know,
exactly.
but when you're, you know, during a break or when you get home, you know, your quiet time,
Mhm.
get a good cry out. It's
Yeah,
okay.
and you know,
You know?
sometimes if you're sitting there and you're not taking a call, I mean, I have actually I've been on a call before where they would have never heard me, but I was, you know, tears
Oh
were
yeah.
coming down because it's like,
Yeah.
damn, Like I
And
can't believe
I'm just kind of teasing about that, but you
No,
know,
no, no.
so,
I know what you mean. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But
you
yeah,
know,
I just mean, there are some times where when you're off the phone, or even when you're on the phone, it happens because we're human, and I
yeah,
think that's
you just
what
power through it, you know,
um,
and stay and get your job done.
I think that's what makes us so good at the job that we do, because we're empaths, because we put ourselves in the shoes of the caller and the situation. We're relating to them, and we're able to really help them by doing that. Yeah, sometimes that leaves us with some nightmares and shit that are going on, but the ultimate thing is helping them, as well as helping those out in the field get there, because like I said, we're piecing it together in our brain, and
Yeah,
sometimes what we're piecing together is worse than what's actually there. But
yeah,
you do what you got to do to complete everything that's going on, to complete that call and get them help.
yeah. I mean, you go through your calls and you ask the questions you need to ask, but you're listening to the caller.
Mhm.
And it's not necessarily what they say, but how they say it, you know, and it's all the background noise like we've talked about. Um, all that is in the phone call. And then again, like you had said, you're also managing the radio
Mhm.
and what's going on out on the street. You know, so it's all encompassing. You know, it's yeah,
There's
it's all of it.
a lot to it. It's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
relevant.
So so we don't just answer the phones.
Right. Yeah, and also building on top of that, of just not answering the phones. There was a couple calls that you took as well. One of them it dealt with a gentleman who was actually out of Knoxville, Tennessee, who ended up in your area. Now, this was it turned out it was a serial killer, was it? Or how did
Like
that
by definition,
by
because the thing is like
definition? Yeah.
if you like, you know, I think it's three or more people. So um his wife and mother-in-law were like missing.
Mhm.
He is MIA. The area law enforcement had, I guess, information that he may be in our area. Um, and we were right outside of the Atlantic City area. So he, you know, was known to like get to gamble or whatever. Um, so we find this out later because what the call starts basically is we get a phone call from the local department store. They have a shoplifter. So the officer in that area goes, picks him up, brings him to our station, you know, does the whole processing thing and charging him with the crime of shoplifting. And part of that is we, you know, run to make sure who he's telling us is who he actually is. And
Mhm.
in that process, he came up as a missing person in danger, which is usually someone who wants to either harm himself or he's got some sort of, you know, there's something that the family's concerned that the person is out missing and may not return, you
Right.
know, medical issue, something like that. Um, so I was like, hey, officer, this guy is in the system for this, you know, so I'm going to send a hit confirmation request. You know, it's like we're going to talk to the other agency, ask them, is this legit? And do you really want this person, or are you really looking for this person? And we got a response back, yes. And then I got a phone call, and the sheriff's department was like, yeah, we just figured out where his wife and mother-in-law are. The cadaver dogs found them under the pool. He had
Oh,
put like a concrete slab. He had put like a concrete slab over the unused pool, whatever. So he's wanted for homicide. So I was like, oh, okay.
yeah.
So
I mean, that changes everything.
so I called down to the officer with him, and I was like, I have a sheriff's deputy from Knoxville that needs to talk to you. And here you go.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what else? Yeah.
Yeah.
That.
So he sat on the inside our cell. We have a couple cells for, you know, short time detention until the county jail, you know, until we have to transform to county jail or whatever.
Mhm.
So because he was a fugitive from another state, he sat in our cell overnight. And I think I was back when I was part-timing. This is how far back this is. I was on the 4 to 12 shift when this happened, and then I had to come back for 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. So I finished up midnight, came back 8 a.m. He's still sitting exactly the way he was when I left. And around noontime, the guys with the cowboy hats and shiny badges on their belts walked in and escorted him out, and he was flown back to Tennessee.
Oh man, that finding that out, you gotta that adrenaline probably starts kicking in because you're like, oh, so this is like even worse now. Okay, let me
Yeah.
hold on, let me get a hold of the officer because they got the guy already.
So,
But
so his first wife passed away in the tub, and then I guess because of the finding his second wife and the mother-in-law, they did some more investigating and whatnot. So they determined that he had made that happen, and I believe another family member. I'm sure it's on the internet somewhere. So you could like. I don't want to be like putting out false, but
oh,
if I,
right,
I'm going by memory, and it was a long time ago. But yeah, so
that
it's all out there, like the story.
that is pretty crazy, man. And then on top of that, there was you also had a long pursuit. And I have to say that whenever I was working main radios for law enforcement, like those were the ones that I loved to work. Now I know that the public probably hearing that are like, "What? That sounds kind of weird," but it's the one. Those are the types of calls that you're putting. There's so much resources and everything that you're going to it, and you want to be the best at what you're doing. Helping. It's the how much you're helping, that is what got me going. All the high priority complaints, I was helping with all of my calls, but those higher priority complaints, those are the ones that I always wanted to work because I'm doing so much, and I'm doing I'm helping. I'm helping out in every way possible, and those calls are such good ones. So those pursuits, anytime those were going on, those were I loved working those.
Yeah. So this pursuit occurred where a couple just topped off their Suzuki Sidekick,
Mhm.
and then at knife point robbed the gas attendant. So I get
Oh.
the gas attendant, tells me he's just been robbed, gives me the description. I give it out, and the officer, who I believe is now the chief of police, he's like 15 confirming this is who you say is the accused. I'm like, yep. And then another officer went to the scene, and he confirmed it as well. So they get a couple units together, and they try to initiate a stop. And this is just a couple miles down from the gas station.
Mhm.
The guy doesn't stop. So, and being that it's like a felony or whatever, and this is also back in like 2000, maybe, right before, right after, right around that 2000 mark,
Mhm.
the year 2000. This is going down. So they go into Atlantic City, which is Atlantic City. There's a couple towns uh, on the same island. It's Absecon Island is what
Mhm.
it's really on a map or whatever. So they do like a couple laps on the island. Then they come out on the south end through a causeway up back into our jurisdiction. And our agency didn't have spike strips at the time. They were relatively new. It was kind of, a new thing that they were, trying out or whatever. Yeah, that's how old this is. and 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 so the sergeant was like, "Man, if I had spike strips, we could have ended it like right here." But he didn't. So he just gets back in the back of the line, and they're pursuing the vehicle, and it goes through like every town in South Jersey, and like basically when it gets to a point, it's just my sergeant and then the other agencies that are taking over each time that he gets into another town. So it goes from Atlantic City inland. Then there's a county road that goes uh, like north to south. So he hangs a left and goes into Cape May. So Cape May is the most southern tip of New Jersey.
Mhm.
He does a couple loops in that town, comes back out, and ends up going on a highway that goes from the south to the north along the Delaware River, like in that area. just to give you an idea. So I'm on a phone with an agency that's up ahead, trying to get an officer with spike strips. That's the thing. The whole time this is happening, we're documenting, like, turn left here, turn right here, and it's just my partner and I. This is back when we only had 2 agencies, and we're on the phone. Do you have spike strips? Do you have spike strips? We had both phones at the same time. Do you have spike strips? Do you have spike strips? Yes. Go ahead. You're turning here now. Like, all this is happening, and then they get on this highway and they're heading up. We get in on an agency, like, yeah, we have spike strips. Great. Yeah, the officer's on the highway. By the time he got it out and set up, the car had passed his car. So spike strips were not deployed. So now they're continuing down the highway. They get up to Camden. So now I'm on the phone with the Camden city dispatcher at the time. And she's like, a blue Suzuki? Yes. Okay. Camden, whatever agencies, state police. You're from you're from this agency? Yeah. Okay. There's your sergeant. He's the caboose. He just went by my window. So the pursuit she's like, I should probably back up. So the pursuit comes down off the highway into the city itself. And she's like, they just turned onto Front Street. They're going to come by my window. Let me take you to the window. So she's like, on the cord, looking out the window, telling me as it goes by. So then they go over the Ben Franklin, which there's like 3 bridges from Jersey to Philadelphia. I'm being like in Midtown. They go into a suburb of Philadelphia. They have spike strips. They stop the car. Pennsylvania State Police, New Jersey, do a side of the road hearing and handoff, and the state police brings it back to my sergeant, and I'm sure they follow whatever rules they got to follow.
Right. Yeah.
Disclosure. And my sergeant is sitting on the Jersey side of the Ben Franklin and brings the couple back to our station for processing and a whole lot of tickets.
Man, yeah, well, yeah, for sure. You seem to have a pattern though on robberies.
Well, I had another one. We got him like a mile down the road, like about a month later. I'm like, what's with me and robberies?
I know, man. You're a magnet for robberies.
Well, we were having a bunch of them they were robbing the hotel lobbies. Mm-hmm. Again, this is way back, and that stuff doesn't happen anymore. Yeah. But yeah. So, yeah, I mean, things happen.
Yeah, exactly. It's 9.
We're not the robbery central, capital of the world or whatever. Like, this is over a course of 25-year career.
Right. Yeah. Oh man, that is crazy. Well, dude, it has been awesome having you on this episode. But as we go into the wrap up of this episode, I guess a couple things. First off, just from you and from your experience, again, speaking to those who are coming up and even those who are seasoned dispatchers and call takers, from you, what are some things that worked for you or that you know of that we can really work into burnout prevention and recovery? And then second, I guess one more message or thought on what people should do to continue the dialogue for reclassification.
Yeah. So I was offered help and I took it. That's step one. Step two, if you're talking to a counselor and you're not feeling that it's working or whatever, and of course everyone has to, either, follow their medical plans or whatever. But if you have access to, shop around, find somebody who you're comfortable with and talk. And hopefully with the books that I talked about earlier, and another book that one of my lieutenants had shared with me, Bulletproof Spirit, and that's for public responders, and it's probably geared to or right along the same lines as the other books that I already mentioned. And then another book that it's I think it's like What I Used to Do. So it's like, don't stop doing what you were doing before you got the job. If you like hiking, keep hiking. Make time to go hiking. If you are an avid runner, keep running. Don't give up on running. If you have hobbies or you had hobbies when you got the job, keep them. You know, when you want to sit back and not really be a part of things, force yourself to get involved. Our family sacrificed so much with us not being there. So when we are there, we got to be there. Remember, because that's definitely something I wish I could, if I could go back like 6 years, I would do it in a second, to be, reconnect with my family when I'm at home instead of thinking of all the other stuff.
Right. Now, then along with that, reclassification wise, from the stuff that you're doing, and I guess just some advice for everyone else out there in their states to be able to continue pushing this and continue that dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, just again, it's not one letter, it's not one phone call. It's a well thought out letter explaining the job, explaining the idea behind the reclassification, and just share your story. My thing that I kept saying, and it's in the congressman's letters: we're the most essential, non-essential employee in the government. like how crazy does that sound? But like we literally are the most essential, non-essential employee. So we should be honored and recognized as being essential employees. And the different rules should apply to us as much as they do to the other agency, the other professions.
Exactly. Well, again, man, thank you so much for being on. This has been excellent. Learned a lot about you, a lot of stories, and a lot of good advice and everything that's been going on. So I thank you so much for being on.
I appreciate you having me on, Ricardo. And then you yourself was part of my recovery, discovering that I wasn't the only one. And you've said this many times, but I was one of those guys saying, when those hashtags started coming out, I was like, oh wow, hey look, it's not just me.
Yeah.
So you rock, bro.
Thank you so much. For those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches podcast. This show will always be free. However, if you're looking for bonus episodes, early releases to those episodes, behind the scenes series, discounts to the store, swag, t-shirts, all that type of stuff, you can check us out, and that's patreon.com/WTT podcast. Again, that is patreon.com/WTT podcast. I wouldn't be able to do everything that I'm doing now without the support of all of you, especially the patrons and also sponsors. This broadcast has been sponsored by In Digital as well as Rapid Deploy. And these episodes can be seen on YouTube, on Facebook, and for the audio portion, on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everybody, and we will talk to you soon. Cheers.